leading. Not 13-9 with a riding time. The final score. There it is.
Stephen qualified for the state tournament last year in the 6A division, which is quite an even good accomplishment just to go for a sophomore. A lot of coaches don't like the dads telling the kids what to do, but well, I don't know. I've tried to tune back just a little bit. I lost my voice against that referee the other night. Wrestling in our family has been a long tradition. We've got 13 sons, 11 of whom have wrestled Saturday after Saturday. Long tournaments.
Why would I want to beat this guy? Up here, that sucked because I was like, I don't want to beat this guy and then go back and take third. I feel like crap. And so I tried to come back kind of halfway and then lost by 1.
As a parent, as a teacher, as a coach, your job's never really done. Whether they reach their goals or they don't reach their goals, every once in a while you get a kid that comes in and has talent and you think he's gonna do good and he doesn't do so good. So then you gotta go back to scratch and somehow having experience it over and over and over again.
Do you have a goal or a plan for working with these guys every Monday night or whatever night of the week it's going to be?
Well, I'm going to try to get into their heads now and try to start getting them to think like champions. You know, if you just think of yourself as a good wrestler, you're not going to achieve great things. But when you start thinking of yourself as a champion wrestler, then you're going to start really doing what you ought to be doing.
We planted 8,000 trees once down in the field, and we had a little system, but a lot of handwork planting the trees. There were seedlings. And I looked up and there was Larry. He came over to help us, and he helped us for 2 days planting trees. So I knew of his wrestling record. And then when we moved here, about 12 years ago, we became associated with him as a neighbor and became good friends.
I met him when I was 12, and my dad was like pointing him out to me. That's Larry Owings. And I was like, huh, who's Larry Owings? And then I got to know him, and there's a big old plaque in our trophy case in our school of Larry Owings, a big picture of him and his record and stuff.
Larry, I never had to wrestle him in high school. I was always a weight or two heavier than him. And I was really glad I never had to wrestle him because he was just, in high school, he was a monster. And, you know, he was doing stuff back in the old days, in the 60s and 70s, that nobody could deal with. You know, I mean, he was just too skilled. His technique was just unbelievable.
It may have got under a block. She might have a hard time getting it this time. Oh, no, she got it.
I had a back surgery in 1969, I think it was. Larry told me when I was in the hospital what he was going to do. And I said, why would you want to wrestle Gable? Because he's never been beat.
As a little remembrance of our appreciation, Dan, the student body would like to present you with an Iowa blanket. There's a place underneath the I where we'd like to place the undefeated national champion at the end of the year. We have made room to add the 1970 NCAA champion, the Big 8 champion, outstanding wrestler at the NCAA tournament, the Gregorian Trophy, and Athlete of the Year. And all you have to do, Dan, is to come through for us. Congratulations, Dan.
Dan Gable, the greatest in most people's mind. He was the Babe Ruth of wrestling. Now, there are people who have hit more home runs than Babe Ruth, but I think most of us who lived in the era still felt that Babe Ruth was baseball. As far as wrestling was concerned, that was Dan Gable.
Dan Gable created a renaissance in wrestling, a renewal of interest. There was nobody ever like him. He had the following like Arnold Palmer had in golf or Muhammad Ali had in boxing. He was so good and worked so hard that people were attracted to him and wanted to follow him. For a person to think that they could beat him, I would think that they'd actually have to be a little bit crazy.
Dan Gable, at the end of those 1970 NCAAs, was going to be 182-0. And in a way, it was kind of a ho-hum to a certain extent because, hey, he's going to win it all. Even though the sophomore from the University of Washington had made a comment, he wanted to wrestle the weight class that Dan Gable was in.
Somebody interviewed Larry about why did you go 142 when you knew Dan Gable was there, and then his response was something like, because I wrestled best at 142 and that's just too bad for Gable.
The day before the national tournament in 1970, all of a sudden my teammate throws out a newspaper and there was a headline there that said like, I'm here to beat Dan Gable. And I usually wasn't the guy that would get into that type of thing, but for some reason, you know, caught my eye, and when everybody left, I think I stood around and I read it. That was a mistake.
I don't think some of the media had really known who Larry was. And then all of a sudden, he had a couple of fairly good guys in the tournament, he just pinned them. I mean, he was all over him. It was just no contest. And Gable was doing the same thing. Then all of a sudden, I think it got to be a deal.
There was a murmur that there's a young kid over there out of that Northwest school that probably is showing well, but he's going to run up against Gable.
He'd made it to the NCAA finals. He wasn't even supposed to be there, you know. I mean, it wasn't like he has a chance against Gable. Maybe Gable will get me. It wasn't that. How bad's he going to lose? I mean, this is going to be a embarrassment for this mouthy kid from the University of Washington. Who's the University of Washington?
Owings is good, but he's not going to beat Dan Gable. Nobody's going to beat Dan Gable.
Before the Larry Owings Dan Gable match, the Duke University coach sat down beside me, never having met me, asked my name, and I said I was Kim Snyder and I was third place. And I'm sitting this close because I want to watch Larry Owings wrestle Dan Gable. He said, this Owings guy, who is that? He said, he's done pretty well. He said, but you know, Dan Gable, this is going to be his last match and he's never lost. And this has never been done. And I said, well, he's going to lose today. He just kind of laughed at me. He said, 25 cents. We shook hands on it. And the match between Gable and Owings began, and several weeks later I got in the mail a newspaper clipping from an Iowa newspaper and the 25 cents that he owed me. So, interesting.
You see these trophies up here? Those are the type of trophies that you get for winning the NCAA or a national title. And this one here, I got a second place, and that's what this one is. Second place in 1970. And I don't remember who I lost to now. Haven't got a clue. This is second place in the NCAA. Oh, and here's my other second place NCAA also. So there's the two second places, 142 pounds. This is, I don't know, something. This is something else. This is the NCAA title. This one here is the one where I beat Gable. And then that's the Outstanding Wrestler Trophy. We had to take it apart to get it in the trophy case because it was too big.
Well,
It could come out, I guess.
let me get the ones out.
That's it. That's half of it. The other half is the base that goes down here. And these blue ribbons are for first place award at the Oregon State Fair for corn shucking.
Well, not only
I was
first
the
place,
state champion in corn shucking. I can start coming up here because all he needs to do is to roll or something, and I'm lying off. So I stay back in here, and when I see that, I come down to here to catch it, and I push it right to there. Hard up again. Sorry, again. Try to work.
I was in the Dalles, Oregon. It was my freshman year. I was driving my stepdad's Volkswagen Bug and just pulling up to my parents' house. And I heard on the news, it was Larry Owings. And, I hear the name and I go, oh, geez, University of Washington's Larry Owings beat Dan Gable. That was such big news in 1970, that it was on every little radio station. Heck, those radio stations, the local ones here, don't even have the World Series anymore.
We were sitting up in the stands and we felt that moment of silence. How could Gable lose? How could Gable lose? But he did, he lost it.
Larry Owings, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. Breaking that streak of Dan Gable as the first match he's lost in high school or college.
Thank you.
Did you have any special strategy or going out or not?
Just go after him. That's the only thing I had.
I understand that you made this weight just to face Gable.
No, not really. It's the weight I should go at. And Gable just happened to be there.
Uh-huh.
So
now tell me, you went way out ahead, then he came back.
Yeah.
Did you change anything there? Were you really out after him? You were losing advantage time.
Yeah, I know. Well, I figured I could beat him in the third round because I thought he was more out of shape than I was.
Thanks, Larry. We'll give you a chance to catch your breath as you look at Dan Gable. We'll return.
How often do you have to talk about it?
Probably isn't many weeks that go by that there isn't some reference made to Dan Gable. In other words, he was such a famous wrestler, and he was so great. I mean, Olympic champion and undefeated except for one match. Of course, that was the one that I won. So when they think of me, then they think of Dan Gable.
Larry's just kind of a country boy, and I don't think he really liked all the attention he got beating Gable. I don't think he expected to get as much attention as he did, and I don't think he liked it. I mean, he kind of, in my opinion, shied away from it
Dad was pretty modest about a lot of that growing up. He didn't ever talk about it, and it's funny because I remember even maybe in junior high and high school when I started kind of realizing exactly how famous he was in the wrestling world that I didn't understand when I was younger because he just never played it up. It was always not a big deal.
We were talking and he asked me if I liked sports, and I said I loved all kinds of sports, both as a participant and as a spectator. Only two I couldn't stand, and that was wrestling and boxing. And then I asked him if he liked sports, and so he told me he dabbled a little bit in wrestling. And so then he asked me out to the Civic Auditorium to a concert, and two guys ran up and asked him, "Hey, you're Larry Owings, aren't you? Can we have your autograph?" So I said, "Autograph?" He said, "Oh, tell me a little bit more about your wrestling." And so then he brought over the World Book Encyclopedia that had his picture in it, and then he told me a little bit more about it.
I never saw a man cry like that, Dan Gable, tears pouring down his face as he lost his only match. It was huge to him. And I looked up and I saw tears. I saw dozens and dozens of people crying who could not believe they had come here to see the most exciting event in wrestling history, basically, and came to see this somebody from Hubbard, Oregon, defeated their hero. I find it significant that getting in the bus later to go back to our hotel, Dan Gable was running in the parking lot.
You know, I think I was one of these guys that was lucky. And I don't believe in luck. I always say that. And by that I mean I didn't win the raffle. I just was around so many good people in my life. My mom came down and slapped me good because I was choking up. So, you know, she came down after the Owings match, got me straightened out a little bit. And we drove back from Northwestern. And there was a lot of people in the parking lot to meet us. And they didn't know how to handle me when I got out of the car. But I just walked right into the gym. I grabbed a couple wrestlers, took them up in the wrestling room, and went through a workout. And when I was done with that wrestling workout, as I'm leaving, I don't say anything to anybody, but I'm just saying, wow, I'm still pretty good.
To tell you the truth, when I was a kid, I hated wrestling. I hated it so much. I always start crying because I didn't want to do it. Then, after I started getting older, I started to get more mature and think this is actually really, really fun. I love wrestling. I love the challenge. I love how hard it is.
What you do is you try and step and walk and throw. You can't step back.
And there's one major thing that I learned from Larry. He told me this once. He said, you have to beat yourself before you beat your opponent. And I put that into thought, and I totally just started wrestling with that thought in my head. Beat myself before I beat my opponent.
Crank it. You should just keep going.
Get the shoulder.
Stretching of the neck there. What are you going to do to get away? You got to practice bridging or something. What do you got to do? What do you have to do? What do you know?
Oh, it's amazing because, I mean, he's a legend. And not only does he like teach me, but he wrestles with me, and he shows me hands-on and stuff. And it's just when I go against other kids, I know that their coach, they don't have a coach like mine. I know that my coach is one of the best there is.
Especially in a community like this, you're always going to have parents and other coaches and people that are involved, people that are in your history, alumni like Larry Owings. And if guys like Larry Owings are out there and they want to help behind the scenes or in front, that's great.
It's really great to have him around and have his input and just that he's here and the kids realize that a guy from the same situation that they grew up in did something that's pretty amazing. They have the same possibilities.
Larry, dang it, how come every time? Well, you know, it's kind of like this. Everything seems to hurt.
after about an hour of wrestling. Back hurts, neck hurts, shoulder hurts, hands hurt. Let's see, is there any part that doesn't hurt? My knees hurt.
You notice
my
he's
feet hurt.
limping?
Oh, my stomach hurts from eating too much. I don't know, that's about it.
Well, he still has 2 ruptured discs. They only operated on 1, and so the other 2 something could get down on that spinal column again. They have to have surgery again, but you know, he's a grown man and I can't tell him what to do.
Kill it, kill it, kill it, Rena, kill it.
Bob set. Top on. Russell.
When I first took this job, I would go home disappointed, actually, a lot of days, just bummed out that my kids didn't get it. They were goofing around and doing stuff. But after I got over myself, really, it's just like they're just kids and they do stupid stuff, just like we did.
Switch it up. Russell.
They get through. And there's really, all of them just basically at the end of the day want to get along, want to be accepted, and try to find their way, you know.
After you win a match, if you just want to look like it's kind of cool, you take off your headgear and you turn it sideways, and when you go shake the coach's hand, you take it off and you put the strap going down your neck, and then you run and shake their hands. It's just a little kind of fad, I guess, to look cool. You're gonna wrestle, might as well look good.
I think that Larry working with Steven has made all the difference. All the difference in him going from an average wrestler to a state contender, and all attributed to Larry, you know, being here once a week. Definitely. Yeah.
Do you identify with Steven? Both of you being the youngest?
Well, you know, yeah, except it's his life and my life are totally different. I mean, you know, I was made fun of a lot when I was the youngest one, you know. They told me I'd never be a wrestler. But you can talk yourself into almost anything. You can talk yourself into losing, you can talk yourself into winning, you can talk yourself into feeling weak. You just have to have confidence. You can do anything you want. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. You could be fat. I've seen lots of fat wrestlers be really good wrestlers. And you're going, I don't see how that guy does it, but it was right up here in his head. I mean, he thought he could, and so he did.
Full head about 10 feet.
Okay. You blocked that side up anyway, didn't you?
Right on the same line? Yep, right straight ahead.
You don't want me to pull down here where we normally are?
The leveler down there.
Larry and I, my younger brother, we got a system worked out where usually I'll do the scouting from a vantage point, and he likes to get down and dig them out in the brush. So we got radios that we talk to each other, and if I spot something, I usually tell Larry where they're at or about where they're at, and he'll start moving in that direction, and then we just kind of talk with radios to get him in close to where he can see what's in the herd.
And it's the suspense, I guess. It makes you keep coming back. You don't know whether you're going to find a big one or nothing at all.
As far as you can see here, that's where they ran by. Just heard of about 8 of them, at least 8, maybe more. I think they were all bulls. Probably all bulls. Is it deer?
All of the family members are athletic. I believe there's that natural ability, physique, that was within us. Anytime you went into town and the name Owings, well, do you know Gary Owings or Danny or Johnny or Junior? Yeah, they're my brothers. My sister Ann and I shared a bed, and I believe Larry had a bed on the other end. We had a wire across the room with a curtain hanging, and that was Larry's end of the room. And then the other bedroom would have been Gary and Danny. It just seemed like an awful lot of us in those 2 little bedrooms upstairs.
Larry was always in there trying his best, trying to keep up with the rest of the brothers, and I got the nickname Porky from being chubby. Everybody thought he wouldn't be very athletic because he was on the chubby side. Turns out that he actually did better than the rest of us, wrestling-wise anyway.
I believe that Larry Owings was tough as a young man, even though he was chubby, roly-poly. We used to kid him and joke with him, but down deep, his confident attitude came from his brothers. They were confident kids. Even when he was losing, and his freshman year, he lost a lot. But something happened between his freshman and his sophomore year. He came back after working that summer. I'm telling you, he had it in his mind. He was becoming a world-class athlete at that moment. No, we didn't really know, but it was in his mind. But you see, to him it was mental. He had to climb some mountains. And Dan Gable was a mountain to him. And what is it about humans when they think they're really getting good and they go, I've got to really try I'm not afraid. I want the very best. And that's, I think, the attitude that Larry had. It's wonderful.
Well, Ken, has been quite a tournament here, the 40th National NCAA Championships. And, we're going to be covering ABC, that is, the Olympics in Munich in 1972. Do you think we'll see any of these fellas there?
Very definitely, but I'm sure we will. Dan Gable, I think, will be in Munich in 72, and I think he's got a fine chance of winning a gold medal. He lost today, but I think we're going to see him in Munich, and he's going to win a gold medal. I think we might see the man that beat him today, Larry Owings. I think he's a very possible Olympic wrestler in 1972. We're going to come on in Olympic-style wrestling. We've been away from gold medals since 1960, but we're going to come back.
I think whenever you beat somebody, and if that other person has some of the same qualities you have, it's going to be much harder to beat him the second time around, and I think that's what fostered Gable. I think he was so embarrassed by that loss that he made it his life's work.
I believe things happen for a reason, and Dan Gable losing that one made him realize that, hey, you ain't the best you could be, and if you want to be the best, you're going to have to work a little harder. And his training was phenomenal. It's hard to even believe. I can't even imagine the punishment he put himself through and to get where he wanted to be.
72 trials were held in Anoka, Minnesota. And I think when people were looking forward to the rematch, some people were thinking, boy, I wonder if Gable hates Owings. He's really going to go out and crush him because he broke his string. And there's a lot of hype for the match.
There was some talk, there was some conversation about Owings pulling down to 136, which was the weight class below Gable's weight if you were 149.
The day before the tournament, I was a couple pounds over, and I was tired of everybody relating me with Dan Gable. It's kind of like, you're the guy to beat Dan Gable type thing, and I didn't want the publicity anymore. I wanted to be just Larry Owings, not Dan Gable Larry Owings. So I thought, well, I'll just go up to 149.5 pounds. I'll wrestle Dan Gable, and it'll be done and over.
There was a huge crowd building in the gym, a huge crowd. They'd all come to see Dan Gable and Larry Owings rematch, and Larry Owings said something like, yeah, they're all here to see me get beat because I'm the guy they love to hate.
Well, I was the head official for the United States, and so I was in charge of officiating at the tournament. And when I saw that match coming up, I just decided I'd take it. There was an anticipation that it could be a barn burner. It was not. It was, it was controlled.
It was a standard routine match, and Gable was the attacker and the scorer, and it was obvious that he was the man that was in charge. And of course, as we all know, he went to Munich and didn't have 1 point scored against him in I think he had 5 matches in the Olympics.
His eye busted open in one of the matches and had his head all taped up, and I think he was nursing a bad knee and might have had that taped up, but there was no stopping this guy. He was a machine, and he was hard as nails, and nothing was going to get in his way of winning that gold medal.
I mean, how many guys could ever go through an Olympic tournament and not get a point scored? I mean, that says something. There's only one guy I know that ever did it.
Dan Gable lost to Larry Owings and leveraged that moment into a gold medal. I can't say that necessarily was the same result for Larry. Larry wasn't able to leverage that into something further.
Larry made a comment, for him, it was kind of like, what's next? What else is there? Some people have theories why he lost to Tom Milkovich and why he lost to Darrell Keller his junior and senior years. And he thinks, he didn't have the drive he had. I think there was something to do that. Andy got married, and, frankly, I don't think she was all that good for him.
They got married too young. I think it was right after he won the NCAAs, and geez, we're all saying, oh no, because it's a hard thing to balance unless you got a wife that really understands. And I don't know if very few wives ever would, the way he put the effort into it. But he made that commitment and he lived with it.
I was pretty devastated, I think, after failure of that marriage, as many people are when they think that they've got, the companion of their life. It just didn't work out.
You can love somebody yet still not be able to live with them. And I know maybe that's just infatuation. But on the other hand, if you like a person, you can be around them all the time. I mean, if you like being with somebody, I think that's more of a real, true love than, seeing somebody and just falling in love head over heels, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, you don't necessarily want a wife that you can show off as much as you want one that you can depend upon. My 2 daughters from the previous marriage, of course, they're kind of estranged still. And it's really too bad because there was a period of time when I was really close to both of them.
In a way, sometimes I feel as though he still sees me as a little girl in pigtails, but that's because we're daddy's little girls. We'll always will be something like that. When I think of all the memories and all the things and going through, I think that was probably the hardest thing my dad ever had to do. And I remember sitting down and having the conversation with him, and that's the only time I've ever seen my dad upset like that. So I definitely think that it impacted him. And I don't know if it was something he expected or something he wanted. I just remember it just being really hard on him.
Anyway, that's life. We don't always get to pick the path we go on. We do get to make some choices along the way, but still we have to live with and deal with the hand we're dealt. And so when fate deals you a rotten hand, you've got to figure out what to do with it and make something out of it.
Don't get this on film.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll tell you when.
Get that pedal up there.
After it started.
In 2003, Samantha came to live with us.
Okay, I'm not.
And at that point, we acted as a foster family for her.
Don't get this on film. I hurt my leg.
You hurt your leg?
I only hurt it. I said don't get it on film.
Okay, I won't.
Here she goes, everybody.
Hope you fall a little too late.
At the end of a year, the courts put Samantha up for adoption. And since she had been living with us, we were kind of first in line to be able to adopt her.
Mama, can you sell that boat someday?
What?
Sell that boat someday.
Okay.
So the other day you were saying that he's not an average guy.
No, he's
And
not.
what did your dad do that he's in the Hall of Fame that he's not average?
Well, he's like the only wrestler to beat Dan Gable in college.
Mm-hmm.
He could have gone on to the Olympics, but he was a family man and said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then he got a divorce. And
Why did I?
come get me.
I'm trying to go, but the thing won't go.
It's doing what you tell it to. You're just not giving it the good command. Don't bother shaking it. Your controls aren't set that way, even though mine are. Oh, you ready for this, Dad? You're going down.
Oh, what a surprise.
Again, what a surprise.
Hey, I was just too late for this round.
That's
Sheesh.
great controls.
Sure.
My legs are strong in your arms, Bo.
I think he's getting points here, Bo.
Bo, your best bet is to let go of my foot and roll right into me. Okay? I mean, if you fight it there a while and you can't get it, change tactics. Grab my arm and do fireman's on there. And reach over top of me. See right there? You got it.
The fireman carry is Larry's favorite move. He just catches this in it all the time. He hasn't taught me the counter to the fireman yet. I'm just trying to figure out for myself. That's one move he can catch me in still.
Ready? That's all it is. Just pull him down and shake him off.
Yeah, I believe they are. They don't know quite what to think right now.
About halfway through the second round, Larry shot a fireman's carry.
4-2 now, Owings ahead.
And to this day, I've referred to that as the greatest fireman's carry I've ever seen. And he got underneath pretty good. And of course, Gable's got a great sprawl. I mean, his feet are backwards. His chest is going to the mat. He's back 10 feet on the first sprawl. No chance a guy's going to hang in there with a fireman. I mean, zero chance, right? Now, Larry did. And he hung in there and he hung in there and they kept going and kept going. And if you watch that, he's clear to the other side of the ring when Larry sneaks under a little bit more. And the next thing you know, you see him just bringing Gable straight up. And if that doesn't take a whole lot of horsepower.
My goal is when I'm 80, I'm still able to get on the mat. Let's see. I'm not 80 yet.
Let's bring it in, guys. Steven, Brandon. Let me see you guys. Let's go. Day one. We don't see on three. 1, 2, 3. We don't see. I don't wrestle good when I'm mad.
I like to stay relaxed, but I got really mad before that match and wrestled crappy because I was all pissed off, and in my mind blamed some things on the ref, and it just screwed me over the whole match.
I guess my comparison to tell people, wrestling is a fight with rules. And if you were to say you were going to get in a street fight, what's it like to lose? It's not, it's not a good thing, and I don't want to compare fighting to that, but it is a very physical, combative sport, and it's personal. It's one-on-one. It's not football guy beating you to the punch and getting a better angle. It's somebody beating the hell out of you in front of people, and you have to stand there with him raising his hand right next to you, and that's personal.
I've got to say this, wrestling was never my favorite sport. It was the toughest sport I was ever involved in, and it probably gave me more in my lifetime than any other sport in molding my own character and my own being, because wrestling is so demanding. To come back and try to overcome the fact that you lost, it's, I think, such a character builder in young people. I used to feel concerned more about the kids that lost than the kids that won. And I wondered in my own mind, will I see that youngster next week? And it always made me feel good when I saw that kid come back and wrestle his heart out.
They're all tough, physically strong, and they're all quick, physically quick, and they all know moves. But it's usually the guy that won't break under pressure, that has a burning desire to win and wants to win, that ends up being the champion. I mean, you can see it in the wrestling. The guys, they'll get out there and they'll be going tooth and nail at each other until one guy finally will fold. He was going to do everything in his power to win. And that's exactly what champions do. They may not be the best, they may not be the strongest, they may not be the fastest, they may not have the best technique, but somehow they always manage to find a way to win. And that's exactly what happened. Stephen had the mental attitude of a champion.
Now Owings goes for that far cradle. He's got his hands locked. He could possibly...
There were some things that were going on that were a little different for me for some reason. I could hear things. And I'm feeling something now. Not only hearing, but I'm feeling. I'm feeling like, man, I'm a little tired. I don't feel very strong, which I really hadn't experienced that before. Like I called for stalling. I mean, what am I doing? You know, and I'm analyzing all this stuff during this match, and I'm feeling like I'm taking a back seat during the match, which I am. He was actually pushing the match. I somehow, towards the end, pull ahead. But I'm not thinking about winning, even though he's down flat on the mat. And then when I go for the fall, it gave him the opening to get out for the third time, which gave him the chance to get another takedown.
Looks like Gable can go ahead now. If he can stay on his feet right here to the end of the match, he'll win it.
I made a mistake by coming up straight-legged off a front headlock. He was able to reach down and just kind of...
Got him down. The 2-point takedown. And on his back also. There seems to be some confusion down on the mat. The score is 13-9. I believe the scores are motioning to the referee, Pascal Perry. Yes, there he goes to find out just what the problem is. He's going over to the scores table. The score is 13-9, favor Reed. Ready? And Dan Gable is bewildered by the score. But he can't figure out that score.
They call me either the bravest or the dumbest guy in the world. But for some particular reason on that night, I was on another level. And I think that's probably the first time that anybody has pushed him. And I think Dan Gable was really tired at the end of the match. So I had a lot of things going for me. And I was in the right place at the right time and in the right frame of mind.
Now there's only 3 seconds remaining. Owings is leading. On 13-9 with the riding time, the final score. There it is, 13-11. First time in high school for his collegiate career. Dan Gable, after 181 in a row, has gone with the sophomore from the University of Washington, Larry Owings,
I don't go around looking at all these medals. They're there. But I'm not a guy that throws them in the garbage can. I've seen some great wrestlers just not accept second place. And for me, I'll keep it because I think it's doing good things for me personally. Even though I'd much rather have won that match and still done it in the kind of fashion that would have driven me to the skill level and the excellence that I needed to. But am I kidding myself? No win would have ever duplicated that loss.
Just as a note of information for the news media, after this is over, Dan Gable, right in the front stage area here, will be available for interviews. At this time, for representing the Gable family, and Annie, Jenny, Molly, and Mackenzie, his 4 daughters, and these are his 4 greatest achievements in life, his 4 daughters, and they will pull the rope that will unveil the Dan Gable statue. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. You were able to get, as Jerry said, the greatest in the world at something. And not only was he the greatest wrestler in the world, he turned out to be the greatest coach in the world. He undoubtedly will become the greatest ambassador for wrestling throughout the world in his retirement. Dan Gable.
This is the only bronze award that I will ever accept. There's something higher in sport, and nothing higher than this, but it would be funny if it was gold anyway. Might be worth more. But I got the sunglasses only because if I have a meltdown. Because if I have a meltdown, I think if you don't really see my eyes, then I'll still be able to talk. I've had meltdowns all day. Lots of memories and things that are very emotional. My vision, I don't even want to talk about it that much because people just, I don't know if you can think that high, think that wild, think that crazy, but that's how things happen. That's how things happen. It's like this particular bronze statue here is, for me, it's beyond that. It's like, what can I do to get that statue in Des Moines, Iowa, at the state legislature, right along Borlaug. What do I got to do that? Or what can I do to get this statue to go to Washington, D.C., right beside Abraham Lincoln? What can I do? That's how I'm thinking. Don't think I don't have a lot of thoughts right now, too.
Hey, there's a picture of me. Outstanding athlete for all sports in 1970. That's me.
The atmosphere is something I've never seen. I'm sure if you go to Iowa and that, you'll see some of this. But in Oregon and Washington, it just doesn't happen that often. Maybe in a high school state tournament when they bring in their local fans. But they started chanting when Larry came out on the mat. Larry, Larry, Larry. The whole, you couldn't even hardly hear yourself. It was like a small Super Bowl. I mean, it was so intense and how he had the crowd in his hands. In the state of Washington, Seattle, he was a legend there. And you say, well, a lot of people did that. No, a lot of people didn't do that. They're just, I dealt with thousands of athletes. There's only one Larry Owings.
You're wrestling, right? Yep, that was it. Now the golf center.
Listen, when the UW program dropped, I was insulted. I mean, that was a big part of their history. And big part of their history was when Larry Owings beat me in sport. I don't care what sport. And that was something that institution should cherish forever and honor with keeping wrestling. You don't ever close the book on something that you don't feel totally great about. There are things that stay with you forever. So, I think most of it's gone, but no, there's still part of me that it'll never go away, and most of it's good, but there's some of it that there's pain, and that's just the way it is. And I'm not sure how to get over that, and I don't think I really want to. I think it guides me. Can you figure that out? I mean, hopefully people understand that.
Okay, Rooster. Are you ready?
Dad, what's the Japanese word for fall? Like wee.
I mean, I haven't looked back at my wrestling career at all too much. The only thing that I would like to go back to do is go back and be in the Olympics if I could. That's about the only thing really that I would have changed about my wrestling career. The rest of it, I think, I probably did about as well as I could have done.
Dan Gable, probably the greatest wrestler in intercollegiate history. You saw him lose the first bout of his school career. But you'll hear more from Dan Gable again at the Olympics in 1972. And here's Larry Owings, upset winner of Dan Gable and voted outstanding wrestler of the 1970 NCAA Wrestling Championship. Well, that's it. Now let's rejoin Jim McKay in Pepperell, Massachusetts for the third and final heat of the International Motocross Motorcycle Championship.
This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
That's the big one coming up here. Dan Gable going for number 181. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. Breaking that streak of Dan Gable.